Hi, hello everyone. It is lovely to be with you as always. I am Aimee Raupp of aimeeraupp.com, and I get to come to you every week and be live and talk about what I think are really important topics when it comes to women's health and vitality and fertility. You guys have seen a lot of me over the last week, sharing all sorts of stories of hope and inspiration with women on their path to motherhood. And as October, which is October started today, can you freaking believe it? I don't even know where 2020 has gone. It is Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month. And so, with that, I thought it was a great idea to do a topic on grief while trying to conceive and talking through that. And I want to also make note that I know it's Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month, and I myself have lost a pregnancy, so I personally understand that loss. But I also want to honor the women who are on the journey to motherhood, who are grieving every month when they get their period. You know that grief is real, and so whether or not you've had a loss, which I understand is a very different situation than just not getting pregnant at all, but both of them are losses, and both of them are worthy of grieving, and to really capture that. So, because I hear it a lot in my clinic or with the women I work with, all over the world in my coaching programs, is that some women are jealous of the other women that have had pregnancies, even if they wound up in losses, because they've never had a pregnancy, and then vice versa. Other women are jealous of the women that just had the struggle but have never had the losses. It's very interesting. But what I see across the board is the need for grief, the need for forgiveness, whether it's forgiving God or the universe or their bodies or the timing of their life. They need forgiveness to help them heal and process and grieve the loss in whatever way, shape, or form it comes, right? Because when we're talking pregnancy and infant loss awareness, I don't know if you guys all know stories of women who've lost, had stillbirths. They've lost babies at the end of their pregnancy. If they lost babies at 6 months or 4 months or 9 months, or 1 month, it kind of doesn't matter. Loss is a loss, and it's extremely painful. I think the further along, it strikes a chord with me personally. I've seen those cases where there's stillborns or there's, losses later in pregnancy, and it's really, devastating, but to not underestimate the devastation that occurs every month when you're trying to conceive a child and it's not working, or every IVF that doesn't work, or every IUI that doesn't work. Someone just said, "Thank you, Aimee. 3 days late, but negative test yesterday. Cried and then cried more today." What you were saying makes so much sense. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of you guys can relate, even embryos lost. Exactly. Thank you, Catherine. That's a good, felt like it wasn't the same as a miscarriage, so it shouldn't be as sad. And that's it. It almost feels like there's layers to it, right? I had a coaching client yesterday who just had her second loss. They're both early losses. She's in her mid-30s, otherwise very healthy, according to her labs and her doctors. And, there was nothing. Her doctors were like, "Yeah, this is normal. Just chalk it up to bad luck. Like, move on, next." And I was like, no. This is not normal. I'm sorry. And I'm going to be very clear with all of you. It is not normal to have consecutive back-to-back losses without a live birth in between. If that happens to you, it is abnormal, and you need attention from a doctor who will look at the immunology behind it or look at a clotting factor panel. It is not normal to have back-to-back losses without a live birth in between. Yes, miscarriage happens 18 to 20% of the time. That is unfortunately normal. And that is nature. And it does speak. And nature is wise and it is smart. When you have consistent losses without live births, something else is going on. There's typically an autoimmune component that is going on and needs to be addressed. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, this is the first time you ever heard me talk about this, check out my book, Body Belief. Check out the book, Is Your Body Baby Friendly? Check out the work of Dr. Jeffrey Braverman. He's no longer with us, but his work continues on with one of his doctors, Dr. Vidali, that works in his practice. His website is, what is it called? preventmiscarriage.com. Start there and bring questions, to these lives with me. Get in my hot seat and I'll give you more advice. But embryos loss, the loss of not getting pregnant every month, the loss of having an actual miscarriage. I think even, terminations, there are women who are told they need to terminate based on genetics. And that, that's a loss that basically no one talks about because there's like shame around it, that I had to terminate this pregnancy. There's just layers to these losses that aren't very acknowledged. Most women don't talk about their miscarriages unless they bring it up. Most women don't. A lot of women are very embarrassed, ashamed to talk about if they had to terminate a pregnancy. Many women are embarrassed and ashamed that they have to talk about it, that each month they don't get pregnant. There's a loss in there, right? The stillborn losses. I mean, the later term losses, those are, I had a woman yesterday that I did a consult with, and she had a loss at 6 months. And she has gone on since to have a healthy child, and now they're going to try for a second. But what she had to, because she was young, she was in her mid-30s. She had 2 losses prior, then got pregnant naturally, and had a 6-month loss. So that's 3 losses in a row. What she had to do to get a doctor's attention about this. The only reason they gave her attention was because she lost it at 6 months. Otherwise, they would have just chalked it up again to bad luck or your eggs are all bad. And they'll say that to you even if you're 33, because they don't have reason to look deeper. And so you do have to find the right doctors to support you on this path. I think typically hematologists are the best place to go right away for a miscarriage panel. But either way, all these losses are different, but in the end the same, and require what I think is forgiveness. And that's the piece that's really hard for us to work through in grief. Whatever it is you're grieving. It could be grieving a long journey trying to conceive. It could be grieving lots of losses. It could be grieving failed fertility treatments, grieving partnerships that didn't work out or that didn't come to fruition. So you put baby making on hold. There's grieving the life you thought you would have, I think, is the best way to sum it up. There's grief around that. And from my experience personally and the spiritual work I have done and holding space for women for almost 20 years, I think the component that is not talked about enough that really helps us move through the grief is forgiveness. I just want to see, Sharon, you've had a lot of losses. Sometimes the earlier the miscarriage, the more mingled the grief with guilt over this is not as bad as other people. I don't have to grieve as much. Example, chemical, not really even considered a miscarriage by many people, but grief is grief and everyone has the right to feel what you feel because it's your journey. Hallelujah to Sharon. Sharon and I, I can share. Sharon coached with me one-on-one for a while. She's in my e-course group. She's in my new mama group because she is now a new mama, finally, after a lot of losses. And, she knows the talk. A lot of losses and a long journey, too, to get to the baby, And that's it. And that's like the thing that we really worked on and uncovered. And you were in therapy as well of like, grief is grief, and you are allowed to grieve whatever the fuck you want to grieve, and for however long you want to grieve it. Your grief is your grief, and no one is allowed to tell you it's not what it is. And it can be, I don't want you to mingle in it for too long, but I get it. I want you to be able to move through it. 4.5 years of losses. Yeah, I mean, that's just two Dr. Braverman patients still a loss. So the thing that I've noticed with that is you need my diet in conjunction with his protocol. That's what works for these girls. Sharon was one of those, where, anyway, I've had a handful of girls following the protocol and it's still not working. The diet on top of it is really what works. So the body belief diet, I would highly recommend that to you. In fact, if you don't have a copy of it, Mrs. Ralph, just DM us and we will send you a signed copy. Okay, because I want you to have that book and I want you to follow it. Second trimester loss, such a gray area of need. I've also terminated due to significant birth defects. Exactly. I've had a handful of them. And Alyssa, kudos to you for even writing that there, because many of the women that I know that have terminated are just so full of shame and doubt and grief, and they don't want their family to know. Like, it's just like there's layers of judgment around the termination thing, which I think you do what is right for you and your family, and that's it. And you shouldn't have to answer to anybody. Amen. Find someone who believes in immune issues. That's right. After miscarriage, I can't conceive for 3 years before I lost my pregnancy in 11 week. Now doctors say eggs are difficult to produce. Angel, I would go to my books and some of my programs. I think that's the best way to start. Start with my book, Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. My therapist told me grief is like an onion. It really is. And so there's just layers and layers. How did a doctor tell me my embryo wasn't the best quality? Should be happy it didn't take because it would have died anyway. Oh, God. I mean, there's a layer of like nature is smart, and so, but I think you still have to. So I think the key with how to deal with the grief on the journey, right? If we get to that, and I don't have all the answers by any means. I myself, grieved my own miscarriage. It was a year ago. Like right now, I was like getting the DNC for that miscarriage. And have the grief comes later, I think, at least for me, but there was so many things that I grieved in that miscarriage. There was so much shit that came up for me. And so I think the best thing to do is to sit with it. It's sit in the dirt of it all and the muck and feel all the feels and let yourself be mad, be sad, be angry, be pissed off, be disappointed, be grateful if you will, that like nature was smart, and also be trusting that the spirit baby conversation has helped so many of my clients over the years, helped me tremendously, helped me before I even was trying to conceive, before I was even married. But I was dealing with women who were having losses or were on this journey and were just so heartbroken and so sad and grieving so deeply that one of my patients told me about the book Spirit Babies. And she actually said to me, I think it would be good for you to read because you hold space for us and this might help you. And it did. It helped me so much to start to understand that spiritual connection. And I think regardless of what your spiritual upbringing or background or space is, to just start to engage that there's this other world universe, and that the spirit of the child knows its destiny before you do, and that there is a purpose to them coming through or not coming through just yet, or the purpose to their journey to you, to your family, to the delay, and embracing that. And I think in understanding of that, you take some pressure off yourself in knowing that like your only job is to be prepared, to be in the preparedness, to give your body and all of your cells and your emotional space and your heart and your uterus like the best opportunity possible to receive. And that some of this decision lies in the decision of that spirit and when is the time for them to come through. And then if you are partnered or there are other family members involved, all those things get involved, in the decision making process of when that spirit comes through. So for me and for many of my clients, that book, Spirit Babies, the Energetic Fertility Method by Nancy May is also another beautiful book. She actually studied under Walter I forget his last name, McKenchin or something, who wrote Spirit Babies. I think those are both beautifully healing books. Doing a Spirit Baby reading with someone like Nancy May or Kelly Meehan is another one of my favorites. Really helpful in like opening up to that and hearing kind of the energy and the flow and what's around you and what supports you and what doesn't. So sitting in it, I think spiritual guidance and assistance in whatever shape or form that looks like for you. Even some of Gabby Bernstein's books I think are super helpful, and the trust aspect of, you are where you're supposed to be. Abraham Hicks has been extremely helpful for me in my whole life. Like I started studying Abraham when my dad was sick and dying, which was, he and I were very close, and I was 36 when he died, and it was crushing to my life, and it was a different grief than the trying to conceive grief or pregnancy loss grief, but it was grief nonetheless. And Abraham helped me a ton with that, and then that led me to Gabby, and that led me to Deepak Chopra, and that led me to Wayne Dyer, and just there was a huge spiritual awakening that happened for me through the grief. And I share that too because it doesn't end with the grief. And like Alyssa said, the grief is like an onion, and it's just layers that you peel back. And I think more of you gets exposed, and another layer gets to be healed, and more gets exposed, and another layer gets to be healed. And we can only do that if we let ourselves feel it all. And it's scary to feel it. It's sad to feel it. It feels annoying to feel it and redundant, but you do need to feel it. Thank you, Walter McKeechin. McKeechin? Thank you. How do I say it? McKeechin? I just say Walter M. But thank you. So that we get into it. And what someone had said to me, it was before I had the pregnancy loss, but I was grieving the desire to have a second child, and that my life and my situation wasn't allowing that. I wasn't trying to conceive. It just, we weren't in the position to make another baby. It just wasn't going to work in our marriage at the time. And it was a conversation my husband and I had. And if you guys heard me do my live after my miscarriage, you know the whole story. I'm not going to go through it again, but the decision was that, to choose to support him and what he was going through, and to put baby making on hold. But I was sad about that, and I was pissed off about that, and I was angry, and I was grieving. And my good friend and major supporter at that time said to me, you need to grieve the life you thought you would have. And I think that's like the key for all of us, is no matter where we are and no matter what we're grieving, that life isn't unfolding the way we imagined it. And that in and of itself is sad and deserves a moment of grief, or a large time of grief, whatever feels right to you. But acknowledgement. So the key to shifting out of a belief pattern, the key to shifting out of an emotional state that feels heavy and dampening and sad, is you must acknowledge it. I feel sad because, I feel angry because, I feel stuck because, I feel fucking pissed off because, boom, boom, boom. And know that it doesn't go away, right? There are, even for me with my dad, I mean, it's 10 years next month, and there are days where it comes over me. It just does. And I just let myself feel it and sit with it and know it, and it's like this time of year is a reminder of me of when that happened. And we all have that. And I think it's muscle memory, and it's just, I remember saying once to someone, I could be anywhere in the world. So not just in the season of fall, which was when he passed, but know the time of year when he passed, because I feel it in my cells, and so grief stays with us. It lingers. And I think, and you might not all agree with me right now. I think it's an honor because it's just grief is just love in a different form. That's all it is. My friend Leah Avellino said that, and I think it was one of the most profound things I ever heard, that grief is just love in a different form. And if we see it like that, it starts to become something more beautiful than something that's heavy and sad. So, I don't know that there's direct answers to grief or to, especially I think around the trying to conceive piece, with it not happening every month, or failed fertility treatments, or pregnancy and infant loss. But there's just this space of we need to acknowledge it and then work on forgiveness. I think forgiveness of ourselves, forgiveness of the timing of our life, forgiveness that things aren't unfolding exactly how we wanted. And yeah, Gabby has a live event today at 1 p.m. on unlocking purpose and abundance. She does, and it looks amazing. Oh yeah, my books. Kindly send me the links. I'm new here. Body Belief, got my littlest, will forever be on that diet. You're so sweet. Yeah, Gabby's event looks great. Just finished a book. It's Not Supposed to Be This Way. It's a must read. Ooh, I might read that. That sounds good. Very sage advice. Love that. You guys are so sweet. Absolutely. Grieve the life you thought you were going to have is so key. Thank you, Joanne. The guilt. Oh, the guilt. I know, honey. I know. Is it ANA positive test that comes negative 2 months later considered autoimmune? I would still, if you're having challenges or losses, I would look down the autoimmune path if you ever once got a positive ANA, even if it goes negative at some point. I had a miscarriage and I have your body belief book, but I'm afraid to do the diet because I'm underweight and have so much trouble that I can't imagine doing the diet. Don't know what to do. A lot of people, I always say the diet, what I've seen it do is it just balances you wherever you're at. You won't lose weight if you eat everything I tell you to eat because it's a lot of protein and fat. You're not going to lose weight. And if you start to, you just add back in some carbs like rice or quinoa. That's what I would say. And I would also that's another part of grief is like looking into it, looking into the fears around trying something different. I think about Joe Dispenza where he says, if you want to, our present moment and potentially our future is based on our emotional response to our present moment, right? And our emotions are based on our past and what has happened to us. If we want to change the trajectory of our life, if we want to change the unfolding, if we want to change the patterns and the wiring even in our brain, and as I talk about in body belief, your body hears everything your brain says. Your brain dictates your behaviors dictate your health and your life. You want to change that brain conversation and ultimately change the behaviors and then change your life, you need to change your emotional response. So we start to act out in fear or anger or jealousy, or we isolate, we pull back, we shut down, we don't talk about the situation anymore, like that kind of stuff when we are programmed by our past events. So what you do is you see the situation for what it is. I'm going to use you as an example. Don't take it personally. I'm afraid to try this diet because I have this weight issue, but I do have autoimmune stuff and I have fertility stuff, but I'm afraid. Okay, where's that fear coming from? It's coming from past experiences where X, Y, and Z happened to me. Okay. And so, but do you want to change the trajectory of your life moving forward? I do. So are you willing to try something new and maybe expect different results? Is there a possibility that you could get different results this time around? Has Aimee seen cases like yours before and it's worked for them? Is there a possibility it could work for you? Yeah. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to change your whole thought pattern around it. You don't have to say, I'm never going to have a loss again, and I'm not going to lose weight at all on this program. And it's going to be the thing that changes my life. Like that might be too much pressure, but you could just say, I'm open to the possibility of something working out differently than it has in the past. And just in that way, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, by the way, in a nutshell. But it's also called rewiring of the brain. Just in that way, you start to rewire your brain. Just like what Spirit Babies does. What it does is it opens you up to this other idea or notion that you are not the only person in this equation of trying to conceive, that there is the spirit of the child coming through. If you're in a partnership, the energy of your partner. If you have another child, the energy of that child. If you have family members that are involved, it's everybody's energy. And so you start to realize, like, I'm just one piece of the puzzle. It takes pressure off of you. And in relieving that pressure, I think we start to then allow for more forgiveness and more space for ourselves to heal, to grieve, to process, to try something new, to be open to the possibility that things can shift. And, I think too, to look at the grief and the moments that sucked and that have forever changed us as also ways of expansion. What have they shifted in my life? What have they made me realize? Where's my focus? What are the things that we've now grown through? I can say from my own experience, it was massively transformative on levels I didn't even know needed to transform. I was open and aware for that transformation. I see it as that. I actually still have that baby sonogram picture right there on my desk, and I look at it with gratitude and appreciation for the most part. And I also eagerly await, I'm never going to get rid of that photo, but I can't wait to put another one over it that, is the next baby that's coming through. Right. So that's it's become a reminder of me, not of a loss, but of like a moment and an understanding and an opportunity and a process and something that I've been moving through rather than something I'm letting weigh me down or hold me back. And my story is different than everybody else's story. And I'm not saying that that's how you have to approach it or that there's a right way or a wrong way to approach it. I'm just giving anecdotal evidence of what's worked for me. But remember, I've also had the luxury of being on this path with thousands of women for almost 2 decades. And I see it work out more often than not. And so I get to hold that space for many people. And it's impossible for me to not hold that space for myself, right? So because I just know it and I've seen it and I've lived it and I believe it and I have hope and I have faith and I have the spiritual, I almost want to say like this side that I can lean on. I just get into spirit and it really does help me. But allowing yourself, I think, really coming back to grieving the life you thought you would have, to forgiving your body, forgiving the time, forgiving the doctors. Alexandra and I went live last week, and she had quite a few losses. And when we first talked, she's an e-course student, and she did some private coaching with me, and she was pissed off. She was angry, and doctors had missed things, and she had every right to be angry. I was angry for her. And you guys can see me. I get angry when I hear about more losses than there should be. I mean, I do. My feathers go up, as I say. Like, I just get pissed. But I had her write a letter to the doctor that she'd never send, but it just letting it all out, And then when she did finally get pregnant, I was like, now you're going to send a birth announcement to that doctor too, and just kind of jab them. I don't know if you did that though, but I recommended it. It helped her so much. It helped. There was a forgiveness in there that she had to forgive. Like, there was this one layer, and there was another layer. There was another layer. And then there was another layer that was her own self and her own body and her own opinions of how her life should have unfolded versus how it did, right? So forgiveness. And with all that, I do have a meditation that I made not that long after my own miscarriage that I thought would be really nice to share with you guys. It's my I Am Safe meditation. And it's, if you go to aimeeraupp.com/you are safe. So Instagram, you guys can DM us for the link. Facebook, we're going to post it for you guys. aimeeraupp.com/you are safe. Okay, I see some other questions here. Let's see. You guys, absolutely agree. Grieve the life you thought you would have. Ordered Body Belief, but out of stock. Ooh, look at me, because we had a busy week. That's great. That's good for me. Not so good for you. I'm sorry. October 8th is only 7 days away. Okay. I look forward to my coffee every day. Come Body Belief work if I continue 1 cup of organic coffee a day. Um, yeah, I think so. I mean, during the purify phase, if you can do it, where you cut it out for those 11 days, that would be great. Just make note, and if you don't see all the changes you expected to see, then the coffee could be a culprit. That's how I would approach it. I now see my miscarriage as miracles, but it did take me a while to get to that point. I agree. It's like I do see it as like this, like almost when I think about it, I see this like white spark of light, like it's like a gift from the universe. It was like I was chosen for this person's spirit to complete some sort of mission, and I know what the mission was, and or at least I think I know, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. Um, and I feel very graced and honored by it. Not to say it isn't sad or that I didn't wish it turned out otherwise, but there was a purpose in it and a mission, and I feel grateful for that. I don't know that I would feel the same way had I had four losses, So I get that everybody's different and might process it differently, but that they are miracles and they are blessings, and they do say in the spiritual world that most of the time the same spirit comes back to you. So you physically lost the child, but you didn't lose the spirit of that child, and that helps me, and that might help you. Forgiving the doctors, never thought of that. The doctor I saw for my first fertility workup scared the crap out of me. Yeah, I think that's important. Okay, guys, so free meditation for you all. aimeeraupp.com/you are safe. And I'm going to go because I made myself an appointment to get my eyebrows waxed. They have not been waxed since February. You can't tell, but I can tell. So I'm going to go and get my eyebrows waxed. And I love you guys, and I'll see you next week. Um, okay. And I started taking liver pills today. I love it. Well, congratulations. All right, guys. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Just let yourself feel all the feels. And grieve the life you thought you would have, and forgive. Maybe that's part of it. Like, I'm just one last thing, because Deb said it. I never thought about forgiving the doctors. Make a list of the trauma, which is maybe the loss or the trying to conceive or the path and the journey and how long it's been, and where are you still mad? What are the situations you're still pissed off about? And each one of those situations needs a letter or an acknowledgement of forgiveness. And maybe you won't be able to forgive it all right away, but like, oh, I need to work on some forgiveness around that. I need to work on some forgiveness around that. Okay. All right. You guys have a wonderful day. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.